Not here with Matt Taibbi, but I am here with his Batman to Robin Matt Orfalea, who works with Matt Taibbi quite a bit and is currently dealing with something behind the scenes with YouTube, suspended for, right? Weren't you suspended again, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. And it was for a video which you normally do, showing like actual source material that's already out there that reflects the hypocrisy of how censorship on these tech platforms work. Yours dealing with the election. Breaking, I made a vid showing election fraud claims from both Dems and Repubs. In no way did I advance or endorse any of the claims. For documenting this history, YouTube just deleted it, blocked me, and gave me a strike, a step toward deleting my entire channel. Now, today, we are going to be talking about Matt Taibbi and the Twitter files, but it's kind of similar. I mean, it's a different platform, but it's the same dance, I think, right?
And this and that video I made that was on for Matt Taibbi's Substack.
Right.
It was, so yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So it's yeah, lots of connections here. Well, let's just first start with your reaction to what Matt released on Twitter.
Well, first, I mean, it was an incredible experience. I mean, and I think I shared with many other people. We're just like, all right, Elon, like, where is this coming? You said 5 o'clock. When's it coming? It's to 5:30. Hold on. And then I see Taibbi, tweet out part 1, the first post, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so perfect on so many levels that he's the one to break this, that Musk had, gave him the scoop. It's because, the whole story of the Hunter Biden laptop censorship is about how, mainstream media has let everyone down and become, a political arm for one political party or the other. Obviously, in this case, it was the Democratic Party aligned media. Although Fox News, I believe, declined initial reporting on the laptop. But anyway, so it's just so perfect that, in reporting the story of mainstream media failure, you go to an independent source, which unfortunately is, it's not the to go to thing nowadays, but it should be. I mean, trustworthy sources is who you want to give your scoops to. And I hope this is the beginning of a new trend, because it's like independent journalists now are more prestigious, more trustworthy than the mainstream media. And luckily, with some of these, new platforms like Substack, you can really generate a real audience and it won't be censored. Now, as far as the contents, there is just a lot of really interesting material. I mean, he's sharing primary source material, actual communications from within Twitter. We saw that the Democratic Party, the Joe Biden campaign was, reaching out to Twitter, and Twitter was deleting tweets on the Hunter Biden laptop story at the Biden campaign's request. So to me, that was kind of one of the biggest things.
Yeah. And Matt basically says that, there were requests that came from like the right side of the aisle, but that most of the, it was basically contacts. Like it kind of similar in corporate news, like who and what circles you run in. And so it just, because like he shows the amount of donation, like here's contributions by party of recipient, and you see a vast majority percent to Dems versus Republicans. So, he makes the case that it was based on contacts, and because Twitter wasn't as overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there were more channels, more ways to complain open to the left, well, Democrats than the right. And yes, as you said, he focused on the Hunter Biden story and has a lot more to release. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, though, is how he talks about the fact that Dorsey was often not privy to this, that like all these there, the elves were kind of working behind the scene while Santa was doing what, I'm not quite sure. Did you think that was, odd, or did that surprise you at all?
That is interesting to see, but I guess Dorsey didn't really strike me as that much of a, hands-on CEO as Musk. So I guess that wasn't that big a surprise. When he went on Joe Rogan with what's her name? I mean, people are calling her Vijay, but I don't. I mean, something. What's the head lawyer at Twitter?
Vijaya.
Vijaya, yeah. So, anyway, I just remember Dorsey going on with Vijaya on Rogan, and it really didn't seem. I think it was pretty clear that he had not made these decisions were not made under his authority. You know what I mean? Or they were made without him. It
looks like Vijaya, she was doing more than he was as far as activity making these decisions. I guess at least in relation to this Hunter Biden story. He has this quote from one former employee saying they just freelanced it. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it.
Yeah.
I feel like
including
sometimes
Dorsey, right?
When you and I are suspended from these platforms, it's just because everybody's like a big wuss, and just, I don't want to like that person back on. There might be people like there are in corporate news who get the sense that like, you know what, maybe this is not really the best idea, but they don't have the balls to stand up.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this case, Dorsey did not stand up, even though and all of these journalists that are attacking Matt Taibbi currently, they're doing so because they didn't stand up. It's absurd. They're attacking him, accusing him of doing bad reporting, being a bad reporter. He's doing classic journalism. He's reporting with primary sources, like really amazing, like historic on a historic event, historic censorship that was arguably, election interference. Especially if you're going to go by the standard that the Democrats set themselves in 2016. According to them, election interference, all something has to be election interference is just, reporting. Or
to them, it's saving democracy. That's how, it's one. It's like, one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's like one man's election interference is another person's democracy, saving democracy. It's just the way it works. Okay, well, I want to show
another man's censorship is saving democracy too. Man.
Exactly right. Yeah. I want to show a couple of the tweets from reporters that you brought up that are just like barf about Matt Taibbi and what he showed in the Twitter files. But first, don't forget the holidays are quickly upon us. Nothing better to try to make friends with grandma after the last couple of years at Christmas dinner than going to AllisonWinePromo.com. You get 50% off my favorite Malbecs from Argentina and 50% off shipping. If you're already a wine drinker, this is a great way to support my work. I love working with this wine. It's a wine club, actually. They source from all over the world, but they picked me for the Argentina branch because they actually heard me on a live stream talking already about how high altitude Malbecs from Argentina are my favorite wine. So I had already said they were my favorite, and they asked if I would like to be one of their clients because I just love their wines anyway. One of them, the Rogue Malbec you see here, is sustainable farm, hand-picked grapes. It's from 6,000 feet. It's very good. It's one of my favorite wines ever. The other ones are very extreme. Well, one is very extreme. Almost 9,000 feet. And the other one, 6,100, uses natural fermentation. They're very unique wines. You can't get them at the grocery store. And they help keep people like Matt and others coming on the channel. I really appreciate the support. One of the best ways that you can support my work is by going out and checking my sponsors. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com, get some great wine at a great price. I also want to just give a shout out to my locals community. If you haven't signed up on locals, go to AllisonMorrow.locals.com, or you can put in questions ahead of time for interviews for people like Matt. It's $5 a month to do that. You get to go one-on-one basically with some of the most censored people on the internet. So don't forget AllisonMorrow.locals.com. Okay, so Matt, let's go back to this. This is Ben Collins. He works for NBC. Imagine throwing it all away, basically saying Matt's career. Imagine throwing it all away to do PR work for the richest person in the world. Humiliating shit. Okay, if I put myself in their head, what I'm hearing is you basically got this deal with Elon Musk. And Elon Musk had said on Twitter that he was going to that these needed to be released, and we didn't know how that was going to happen. And then boom, Matt Taibbi has them. Matt was clear on his Substack that he had to agree to certain conditions. I'm guessing, you know, that no, not guessing, because he basically said on Substack that one of them was that he had to release it on Twitter. So that's one of their conditions. I don't know what the other ones
and
are.
I can't imagine there's more than that. But yeah, that's of course, and that's reasonable. Anyway.
Well, you know, so one of the things, like when I was in corporate news, you know, that kind of stuff happened, and I think the only time it would be something where I would say, you know, well, I mean, I guess I can't say the only time, but like the part where it would concern me would be if it would affect the editorial process. Like if you said, you know, for instance, we waved off a story once because we were asked to hand over the story ahead of time for editorial review. Kind of like how the White House requires that of the corporate news all the time. You know, that story came out not too long ago, how the Biden White House and I guess apparently Trump White House used it too, or it's been going, you know, goes back in time, but the Biden White House uses it more than any, where you basically, if you want to quote somebody directly within the White House staff, you have to send the quote to them for approval before you can use it. That's a thing. Politico even reported on it. So, you know, they do that kind of stuff. And so I think it's a little bit hypocritical if that's one of the things that they're upset about, that he had to, you know, make this concession to release on Twitter. You know, if Elon Musk said, like, if you have to send everything to me for review and I say, you can't say this, you can't say, I mean, I think that would start to concern me. But if it's just like you have to release it on this platform, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have much of an issue with that. We waved off a story once, like I said, because they said they wanted to basically be able to tell us what to remove and what to add. And we're like, nah, you can't do that. But, you know, as far as the platform, I guess that doesn't bother me. I'm just thinking maybe that's one of the things they're trying to throw mud at him for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and clearly, I mean, that was one of the, you know, things he had to do, was post it on Twitter. I mean, so it seemed to me that's what he was referring to. I mean, he says he's going to write more about this whole experience. I think a big part of it's a pretty fun, amazing story that, like, I don't know when he got the scoop, but he had just taken part in a great debate over whether you should trust mainstream media in Canada. The Monk debates. He debated Malcolm Gladwell. I recommend it to everybody. It's incredible. He won. And anyway, apparently I can't help but wonder if that had something to do with it. Anyway, sorry, I forgot where I was going with this, but I guess just the whole part of the backstory of how he got this scoop. I wonder if that was related. His performance on that was related. And obviously, I mean, God, what a hectic schedule, like preparing for debating Gladwell and then this.
Well, I thought it was an interesting choice. First off, it's cool that Elon Musk is familiar with Matt Taibbi. I mean, that first and foremost. He like knows who he is, and obviously is familiar enough with his work that he felt like, again, I don't know intention, but I'm going to put myself in mind. Why would I choose Matt? Because I feel like Matt is somebody in the, you know, in the alternative space, but also held a mainstream, you know, news position. Like he worked with Rolling Stone, and he's not necessarily liked by the sort of establishment anymore.
That's a good thing. That makes you a good journalist. That makes you credible.
And that's why you kind of know he's not gonna just go at it from the same lens that got us into this mess. You know, I mean, if I was going to pick a journalist to open this can of worms to show what's going on, I wouldn't pick a journalist that helped create the can of worms. That would be the dumbest thing ever, right? So, you know, you want a journalist that's been critical of what's happened at least over the last 6 to 8 years, with it just like pushing these tech platforms to suppress speech, especially since you know, the 2016 election and just the hypocrisy around all that stuff. And also, holds credibility in a bipartisan kind of way. Cause Matt, you know, he's able to pull, I would say, like the politically disenfranchised or the politically homeless on, you know, different sides of the political spectrum, because he doesn't just play ball for one team. And so, you know, I appreciate him for that. So I thought it was a good choice.
I agree. And you know, speaking of not playing ball for any team, I mean, that's why people like you. Of course, I That's what I try to do. But in Taibbi, it's just he's got so much to prove it. I mean, your viewers and I are probably familiar with, his recent criticism of the Democrats the last few years under the Biden administration and of the mainstream media under the Trump administration in particular. But he also wrote a book called Insane Clown President about Donald Trump. I mean, so it's just, he's a great fit.
Do you remember when Rush Limbaugh died and he wrote this article about basically the first 3 paragraphs were like how terrible Rush Limbaugh was. But then like the takeaway in it was that people got mad that he knew about Rush Limbaugh's work because he listened to him. Like the fact that he covered him and actually listened to him so he would know the material. And, and they're like, how, of course you listen to Rush Limbaugh, like you're platforming Rush Limbaugh. It's like, wait a second, how can you cover somebody that you don't even know what they do? You know, and that was the takeaway from, for a lot of these Matt Taibbi haters. I want to go back to, Farron was saying that, Miranda Devine is salty this morning. Ari Matt calling him a Substack journalist. That's where they always go. When he writes for Rolling Stone, it was Miranda's article that was censored. She would have bias reporting this. And then also that on the Joe Rogan podcast, literally watch Jack in real time, learn of people getting banned. And she just kept saying under investigation. It was kind of funny to see her as his handler.
And also, I don't think he writes for Rolling Stone currently, but he wrote for them for 15 years. I mean, so to pretend like he's doesn't have, a ton of experience in, the mainstream media is just absurd. He knows what he's talking about when he's criticizing the mainstream media. He worked in it.
So this is funny. Like, so somebody says Matt Taibbi is a liberal, which is unfortunate, but he has some integrity. But let's talk about this for a second, because he's often characterized as like a friend of the far right. In fact, what's funny, in one of the Twitter files that he released, I can't remember who it was in the Twitter world, like one of the employees higher ups said something about the New York Post being far right. And I'm like, really? Is that where we're at now? The New York Post is far right? I don't even know what that means, if that's the truth.
What that means is I just don't like the New York Post. That's what that means. I mean, anybody you don't like is a far extremist. That's just how it is now. It's kind of crazy.
Okay, Matt, you also sent me another one, but let's do this one real fast. Wajahat Ali, you're saying used to work for the New York Times. Matt Taibbi, what sad, disgraceful downfall. I swear, kids, he did good work back in the day. Should be a cautionary tale for everyone. Selling your soul for the richest white nationalist on earth. Well, he'll eat well for the rest of his life, I guess. But is it worth it? Boom. That is rough, dude. That's rough.
White nationalist? What the fuck is he talking about? Like, and then of course I had to point out that, obviously that's all bullshit. Just like when he said that the Hunter Biden laptop was, quote, Russian disinformation, that was, quote, total bullshit. I mean, it's just amazing. It's so transparently obvious that that's why he's pissed off that Matt Taibbi is reporting on the historic and consequential censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story, because he, Wajahat Ali, was 100% wrong on it, and he was pushing disinformation.
As you wrote under this thread, which is why maybe you get blocked by people, because they don't know who's Matt Taibbi. You guys you do sort of look alike. I guess if you shaved your head, I don't know.
Well, anyway, unfortunately, one day I will be bald and look like a but no.
I'm going to be bald at this rate. Okay. Yeah. You said, just like Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Right.
Yeah, he said he called it Russian disinformation meant to harm our democracy and shouldn't be given mainstream platforms, as he retweets, propaganda from CNET saying, or just a CNET post. I haven't read the article, to be fair, but CNET article reporting how the New York Post article was censored. So he's celebrating the censorship and claiming it without any evidence that it's Russian disinformation meant to harm our democracy. It's so funny. and that got like, it's over 10,000 likes, and it's just nuts how many people just swallow that bullshit up.
Yeah. And that, I don't, gosh, that's the thing that I think I just shake my head at more than anything is how in the minds of the folks who think this way, they're allowed to like make mistakes because it's just learning new things or whatever. Like they're just learning new things, it's evolving or whatever. But point elsewhere, and it's like, this couldn't possibly be true because we don't know it yet. So we should censor it. And it's like, they don't understand how, I thought that's what journalism is. It's like new things, you put out new things. So just by virtue of being journalism, it's a new thing. And, it has the capacity to correct the establishment, but they see it as not what experts say. And it's like, but that's what journalism is in a lot of cases. It's like critiquing the expert, what everybody is saying. That's why it's news. I mean, anyway, one of the things that was rather concerning in these Twitter files that Matt exposed is that the First Amendment isn't absolute, according to this guy from, was it not CNET, Net Choice, that letting Twitter know that a bloodbath awaits in upcoming Hill hearings, and basically saying that the Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred the First Amendment isn't absolute. So, I guess at the end of the day, there are restrictions on what you can say. People could argue whether they should or shouldn't be, but it just kind of, it just was interesting to see behind the scenes how this was all working. To really it's not even shocking, but just how often these platforms, like in this case Twitter, are communicating with the highest level lawmakers in the country. And to say that this is not an arm of the government anymore, I just don't know how anyone makes that case.
Yeah, and it's just really disturbing to see, the knee-jerk reaction be the First Amendment is it absolute. It's like, shouldn't the knee-jerk reaction be like, hold on, they're censoring this based on no evidence, saying that it's hacked material based on no evidence. Again, I say that the knee-jerk reaction in this case was, the First Amendment is not absolute. That's terrible. Even worse, many people didn't even consider the First Amendment at all. There was an interesting email exchange where that Taibbi pointed out, where Ro Khanna, a Democratic congressman, actually, reached out to Vijaya, saying that he was concerned about the First Amendment implications. And she made no response. It just went completely over her head. All she did was respond with like Twitter policy, again, with no evidence that it actually violated Twitter policy. And she did not respond to his First Amendment concerns. It completely ignored it. And so also that I did find that interesting. And I think that, that Ro Khanna actually, reached out and was concerned. I think that's great. He's probably unfortunately the only Democrat, and as Taibbi wrote, he was the only one that he saw that had reached out in the files that he had access to. So I gotta. It's kind of nice to know there's that just tiny little bit of concern left. But at the same time, this is the only Democrat. Okay. And I don't know if any of them, maybe Ro Khanna, based on this, that had voiced any public concern over this incredible, like, historic censorship.
Let's go to this other tweet. Brandy Zadron, am I saying that? Zadrozny? NBC, right? NBC, I believe. Let's just double check this. Senior reporter, NBC News, Internet Platforms Politics. Okay. Oh, Harvard fellow.
course.
To leap to political contributions as the reason the right was more often reported for rule breaking is just bad reasoning and really bad reporting. Good thing this guy doesn't have an editor.
This is so crazy, Allison. This might be the craziest one. I mean, because she's directly criticizing him for citing evidence and reporting on financial contributions. It's like, that is like that's a standard in political reporting.
Yeah.
Because there usually is some truth to if people are contributing to a political party, yeah, they side with that political party. I mean, come on. And it's just to be insulting him for reporting this, using this real reporting as evidence that he's doing bad reporting. It's just so funny.
It's crazy when you think about the nutcase contextualizations that are wrong that the legacy press does all the time. Like it'll be something like you show it all the time on your Twitter. This was hate against like with what was it, the shooting or the stabbing? Remember that the guy ended up being non-binary, but they said it was like done in the name of homophobia. Remember that recently? And oftentimes like they'll just be like, this happened, and then oh yeah, let's talk about Pelosi. Okay, that's this one. The Paul Pelosi attack, where it's like they write what happened, which in some cases was wrong. We later find out from body cam footage, but anyway, they're allowed to be wrong. No one else is allowed to be wrong.
Was there body cam footage?
Yeah, there was like
it was released.
Yeah, it was, and according to what I've read, it showed that Pelosi backed away from the door, like that guy Miguel Almaguer reported, and he's like nowhere to be seen now. He was an NBC starling. He was on every like big show today, nightly news, and he first was one of the people to report that there was contradictory material, like that Pelosi opened the door for police and then backed away towards the suspect, making, then it was fueling right-wing conspiracies. That's where it always goes. It's fueling right-wing conspiracies. And then boom, Miguel's no longer on TV. He's just not there anymore. And apparently he was suspended over it, even though it appears that he was right, that his source was right. But, but the reason I'm even bringing this up is because they'll report sometimes or often incorrect information about a particular event. And then using that incorrect information, they'll contextualize it even worse, incorrectly. So they take us down these rabbit holes, because then they'll do like, this is what happened, but it's not really what happened because we got it wrong. But given what we're saying, which is wrong about what didn't happen, now we're going to tell you the context of this, which is, attacks on lawmakers in the name of white supremacy or right-wing extremism or whatever. And they'll go on these bonkers rabbit trails, contextualizing stuff that's, it's like, where's your link? And so that's why I think it's funny to see like, this is somehow a wild connection. This is like a wild leap of faith to say that political contributions could affect content moderation. Whereas, NBC and the others, I mean, they constantly contextualize based on stuff that doesn't have anywhere near this kind of direct link, for why something would happen.
Much less they'll do it when there's no link at all. As like, geez. So the replies on this are pretty hilarious. Like the first one I see down by Jim Stinson says, "This is the dumbest thing ever said by a reporter. I mean it. Political donations have been a reportable detail for more than 100 years because they show influence and leanings." Anyway.
Yeah, and here you are, more bad reporting. You can't get past you, Matt. I love it. Musk dropping files via a liberal journalist, smart PR move, adds credibility to the issue and will make it much harder for his enemies in mainstream media to ignore. I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, people are just gonna, I mean, the common sense, the common thinking is like, okay, if somebody on their own side reports it, they shouldn't dismiss it like they would if it came from the opposition party. But unfortunately, it's just so standard today that they're just going to smear that person as and ostracize them as if they're they are a far right extremist. It's sad.
Okay, let's go for a second back to your video, which is which you lost your appeal for, right? You officially
they rejected
lost
the appeal. Yeah.
Okay, so what we learned then is that you can, and there are videos on YouTube where the corporate press and politicians are literally breaking YouTube's community guidelines related to elections. And they're still there because I did a video. I can't believe my video is still up. So that's allowed. But then when you put them together to show the hypocrisy of it, then you're not allowed to do that. And it's taken down and the appeal was denied. And then now we're learning that Twitter, who knows, but like it's very similar decision making. I don't know how YouTube is doing things behind the scenes, but I'm guessing it's probably similar to the phenomena that Matt released. I guess any thoughts on that, on like what you've been through with this particular issue, trying to reveal this, and I don't know. I mean, it's I guess the more platforms you have that are aligned in like this, it's like, where do you go? I mean, I guess that's why we're live on Rumble right now and ROKFIN.
Yeah. Well, I mean, luckily there's Substack, hopefully, Twitter. But yeah,
why is this election stuff so scary? I mean, why can you show hypocrisy for other things, but you can't show hypocrisy related to elections?
Yeah. Good question. Well, I think it's because elections are very consequential. And so, they cause change, very real change. And, YouTube and the internet is a great medium for change. And that's why people who don't want change have to censor it. It happens all over the world, unfortunately, and increasingly, in the United States. Now, obviously, anybody who's, being honest with themselves can recognize that censoring just people questioning election integrity is so inherently dangerous, because that creates an environment, a system that enables real election fraud. Now, I'm going to be, to save you if you want to share this on YouTube, but I hope you do. I have to say, for the YouTube policy, that I don't know of any significant widespread election interference. And
you always say that whenever election. You come on. You don't.
I'm sorry, because we're not on YouTube. But if we were on YouTube,
we are on YouTube. We are on YouTube.
Okay, well, forgive me, Allison. You say I don't have to say that, but they literally just deleted a video, and they say that's they deleted it because I didn't say that. Which is it's wrong. You shouldn't have to, automatically, say things.
So dumb.
You shouldn't be required to repeat things like in a documentary or an art project, because then it's not a real documentary or art project. You know what I mean? It's advertising or propaganda. I mean, it just seems.
Yeah.
It really bothers me, but yeah, I don't want you to be censored. And I swear to God, no, really, that's what they say. I was censored for, because I didn't include what they say as a countervailing view. And it's like, hold on, but I can't just showing clips and comparing clips of both political parties questioning the integrity of the election. That's what the video is about. It shouldn't have to be about also, debunking election fraud claims. No, I mean, that's another video. I mean, you shouldn't have to have that on all your videos talking about elections, and it's just anyway. And also, it's just so obvious that I was not advocating or forwarding any of these claims. I'm just sharing real documented history. And according to YouTube, just sharing, documented history in video clips is dangerous. It's so dangerous it has to be censored. And that's really disturbing.
Yeah. We did that you and I got suspended for doing that with COVID, for showing that stuff's still on YouTube. And you're like, oh, you would think YouTube would thank you for revealing that this dangerous material is still on their website, their platform. But instead, they just deplatform you. Yeah. A lot of this, of course, goes back to the 2016 election and just constant drones of these community guideline breaking comments from Hillary Clinton herself, and the news asking her about it and discussing it, and all that stuff. And and then you fast forward, and I don't know. I'm just going to say it this much as far as like what is happening with the debate over this topic, but the Twitter files generally, Matt Taibbi and Elon Musk. We were talking about this earlier before we went live. What I see is I think there are fair reasons to be skeptical of Elon Musk's intentions and what's going on Twitter. I just had Ryan Christian from The Last American Vagabond on, who has applied for, the amnesty thing. And, they basically just changed the reason he was suspended from medical misinformation to bullying while he wasn't even on the platform. I mean, he's been locked out for medical misinformation for a long time. And then when he reapplied, like, okay, now Musk is in charge and I can get back in, and they're dropping the medical misinformation policy, they just switched the reason to bullying. And so he's still locked out. So, I don't know. I'm not a fangirl one way or the other. Like, I don't think he's like I don't know. I guess I should just say this. I'm just sitting here kind of just waiting and watching. And I think, there's reason to be skeptical and just pay attention to what Elon Musk is doing with the platform. But also, if there are things that work to benefit free speech, then, you could celebrate those too. He's not my hero. He's not my villain. He's just a guy. And when I hear from people who are skeptical of like what's up with him and his use of the platform, it has far more to do with like, data mining and like Neuralink stuff and implanting information straight into your brain and getting all this information about you and no more privacy and that kind of stuff. This BS about, white nationalism and right-wing extremism and just all this stuff. I mean, it's just crazy to see how this dialectic goes back and forth, and people get sucked into these fake dichotomies and are arguing in this safe circle of topics when there's, there are reasonable things I think to ask questions about, but very few people, are asking them, and they get sucked into these, I don't know, this partisan BS. And so I guess I just leave that there for people as you're considering this topic, what Matt Taibbi is releasing in the days to come. Just like, it's not that, you don't have to necessarily be like all in or all out. You can just pay attention and wait and see what comes out of it. Just see these are just people, and you don't have to have hero worship or villain worship or whatever. You just see it as what it is, and don't get sucked into the partisan BS that this often gets pulled into by the press or the government. Be skeptical of that. That's my final word on the topic.